911, what's your emergency?
My wife and my son, they're both shot.
Something of this nature doesn't happen in this area, especially to this magnitude.
Could be a murder-suicide, but why?
Tell me how I died.
The house reminded me of the Amityville horror house. There was one patrol unit on scene, so we go in, clear the house, and make sure that we don't have an active shooter anywhere on the property. Went in through the front door, Christmas tree was up, television was on, cartoons were playing. We find a female victim in the bed, obviously deceased. And then went upstairs to the kids' rooms, the little kids' rooms, cleared all that, didn't find anything, and then came out, met with the officer that had been talking with the caller, Jason Payne.
Law enforcement asked Jason Payne to stand outside of his truck and not to move until they assessed everything. He had a worried look on his face. He held on to the little girl and stayed in the general vicinity of that vehicle like he was told.
The officer identified the victim in the house was Nicole Payne, and that was his wife. The caller, Jason Payne, was saying that he was getting the two smaller children ready that morning. The older of the two, Jackson, went to school at Quitman Elementary, and the school was less than 5 minutes away. The other little girl, Remington, she wasn't in school yet. And then Jason Payne is talking about Taylor, his stepson, so I asked, where is Taylor? He says, after arguing with Taylor, Jason just left him there at the house and took Jackson to school. Okay, so where's his room at? It's in the garage. And we had not gone into the garage area. When we go into there, it's a converted bedroom, typical 16-year-old's room. There's weights there, there's posters. And then Taylor is there, deceased as well. So I escorted EMS back into the house.
We went back to the bedroom. I remember walking in, and there's a woman laying there. She looks like she's asleep. Nicole's body was not rigid. It was still soft to the touch, and she was warm. I can't get over the feeling of how warm she was. I walked down into the garage, and there was a kid laying back in the bed. What stuck with me was how cold he was. I told my partner that I needed to go get some fresh air. So I went outside and I stood by my ambulance. In front of me was a Dodge pickup truck. And then there was the man, Jason, with the little girl standing in between me and the truck. I remember the officer going to the driver's side of this truck. Then the officer pulls out this rag, this white rag with fresh blood on it.
It wasn't dripping, it wasn't wet for my recollection of it, but it was still blood, so we took it as evidence.
This case is unique because it presents as essentially two decedents, two bodies found at a single residence. At the conclusion of our autopsies, we have two individuals. Nicole is clearly homicide. But Taylor, questions remain.
Nicole, in the beginning, she kind of liked her mother-in-law before things got to the point that Faye was moving in. But it went downhill as they took over more and more, and Nicole got more and more resentful of the fact that this woman was just basically moving in and taking over the child rearing, taking over decorating the house, and her treatment of Nicole was just really bad.
Nicole was treated like the baby maker, and then Jason and Faye were the parents, because she'd be excluded from all kinds of things. Nicole was a stranger in her own home.
Probably about 3 weeks before the murders, Nicole basically did kick the mother-in-law out. The kids said that they saw Faye Payne packing her things, looking very angry. Faye told the kids, "I'll be back." Taylor called, and he said, Graham, he called her Graham, he said, "Graham wants Mom dead." I was like, Why would you say a thing like that? He said it would be obvious to anybody that nothing would make her happier than for Mom to die and her to move in.
Anything that you can think of that would have led Taylor to the point to where he would have killed his mother and then killed himself?
I don't believe for a moment. It's Jason's child.
The last time I talked to Nicole, she'd been talking about divorce, but there was always a gun nearby, so Nicole could never go very far. You think about it a lot. What would make her not leave, except for terror?
To take a rifle, hold it a extreme greatest limit distance from you to discharge it when there's really no reason to do that, puts this case in the highest level of suspicion. And really, 95% of suicidal gunshot wounds are contact. Taylor's body tells us that this, in fact, was a double homicide. Not just a double homicide, but a double homicide that's being staged in a nefarious way to put blame on the 16-year-old kid that was nothing but another victim.
Did you and your wife fight? Did you argue?
I mean, the normal things.
What are we going to find in the gun we haven't analyzed?
What do you mean?
When your prints need a gun?
Well, every gun in the house.
After this interview, my feelings are he's a monster and he killed both of them. On top of all that, when we start getting results back on things, figure out that there's no fingerprints on the gun. Taylor couldn't have wiped it off after he used it.
There was a therapy session in which Remington said that Daddy killed Mommy.
I'm afraid that Jason may look at his daughter as a witness. So I start talking with the district attorney's office that I felt confident in writing the warrant. It was just too overwhelming for it to not be a good case.
Sarah testified about what Nicole said regarding Jason's threats. It's hearsay. That's the reason why the Court of Criminal Appeals gave a new trial. The EMT testified at the second trial that Nicole Payne's body was warm to the touch, but that Austin's was quite cold.
I was scared to death. I just remember seeing Jason Payne across the room, giving me dirty looks. It was very intimidating.
They returned a verdict. 12 in our second trial unanimously found Jason Payne guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murdering Nicole Hawthorne Payne and Austin Taylor Wages.
Jason was devastated, crying. His mother, Miss Faye, sat right directly behind him. And as soon as the verdict was read that he was guilty, she looked at him and said, "I will try to figure something out, son. Just hang in there."
We got word that Faye Payne had been busy, taking cues from him in prison, using code with her, suggesting that if she could find someone to intimidate the EMT witness from the second trial to recant her testimony, he could get a new trial, maybe get out of jail.
All right, Mom. I want you to go ahead and plant those trees for me.
He said it makes people think you were,
Whatever.
Guilty.
8 years. 8 years I've been waiting. Is there anybody in your family, my sister, my cousins, aunt, somebody?
There's bound to be somebody. I'll find somebody, all right?
Tomorrow. I want it done tomorrow.
It was horrible listening to that recording. For a good month after that, I wouldn't let my son go anywhere. He was not allowed to go outside at all. I didn't sleep good. I did not eat good. I wasn't hungry. I was sick to my stomach. That woman, to me, is just as evil as her son. The son and the mother are just the same.
We indicted Faye Payne for the felony offense of tampering with a witness. Eventually, Faye Payne pleaded guilty to the felony charges we brought for her attempting to tamper with the EMT and was punished in district court.